Did you ever wish your piggy bank was full of gold instead of pennies? Well, once upon a time, the US government wished the same. You see, there was a thing called the gold standard. It meant that every dollar bill was like a little promise from the government. A promise that said, hey, this piece of paper is as valuable as a small piece of real gold. Now where was all this gold kept? In a big, shiny vault, of course. Just like Uncle Scrooge's money bin. Each dollar was like a golden ticket, promising a tiny piece of that gold. Remember the golden ticket in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Well, think of every dollar bill as that ticket, but instead of a chocolate factory, it's a vault full of gold. So imagine every dollar in your piggy bank is a golden ticket. Sounds cool, right? But hold on, there's a plot twist coming. But then, something happened. The US said goodbye to its golden tickets and hello to paper party. Imagine this. You're at a carnival, clutching your golden ticket that guarantees you a ride on the most thrilling roller coaster. But suddenly, the carnival owner comes over, takes your golden ticket and hands you a plain piece of paper instead. This paper, he insists, is just as good as your golden ticket. You're a bit skeptical, but hey, he's the carnival owner, so he must know what he's talking about, right? That's pretty much what happened in the United States when it moved away from the gold standard. The gold standard was like that golden ticket. Every dollar was like a promise that you could exchange it for a certain amount of gold. But then, the US government said, hey, let's have a paper party. And just like that, they started printing paper money that wasn't backed by gold. Now who was in charge of this paper party? A group called the Federal Reserve. You can think of them as the DJs of this paper party. They control the music, or in this case, the amount of money that's in circulation. If they think there's too little money, they print more. If they think there's too much, they stop the presses. It's like adjusting the volume of the music at the party. But here's the thing. The Federal Reserve isn't just some random DJ. They're like the most powerful DJ in the world. Their decisions affect not just the US but the entire global economy. It's a big responsibility and it's not always easy to get it right. And so, the US went from a gold rush to a paper party. From golden tickets to plain pieces of paper. And this had some pretty big consequences, which we'll get into in a bit. But for now, just imagine trading your golden ticket for a piece of paper, and being told, trust us, it's worth the same. Sounds fishy, doesn't it? Ever heard of Fort Knox? No, it's not the latest hip-hop artist, it's a place that's supposed to be filled with gold. Now you might be imagining a gigantic golden fortress, but Fort Knox is actually a building in Kentucky that's said to house America's gold reserves. Picture a super secure vault, with walls as thick as a Tyrannosaurus Rex is tall, and as full of gold as your cookie jar is full of cookies. At least that's how it's supposed to be. But some people reckon that Fort Knox might be emptier than a candy store after Halloween. Why? Well, you see, the United States used to operate on something known as the gold standard. This meant that all the money in circulation was backed by gold. So, if you had a dollar, you could, in theory, exchange it for its worth in gold. But in 1971, Uncle Sam said, hold up, we're not doing that anymore. Instead, they decided to base the value of money on trust. Yeah, you heard that right. Trust. Kinda like when you trust your buddy not to eat your last slice of pizza, but then you find him with pizza sauce all over his face. Ever since the US left the gold standard, there's been a lot of speculation about what's actually in Fort Knox. Some say it's full of gold, others say it's just full of dust bunnies. There's even a rumor that it's where they store all the leftover Halloween candy. So what's the truth? Well, the last time anyone got a look inside Fort Knox was way back in 1974. Since then, it's been as secretive as your diary. The government assures us that the gold is still there, but until they let us take another peek, we can only guess. So, is Fort Knox full of gold or just full of old Halloween candy wrappers? The world may never know. Ever borrowed money from your parents and then realized you had to pay it back? Well, the US has a bit of a borrowing problem too. Imagine being a kid who loves candy. You borrow money from your parents to buy candy, promising to pay them back. But let's face it, you love candy so much you keep borrowing more and more, until one day you realize you owe your parents a mountain of cash. This is a little bit like the situation the US finds itself in. So how did we get here? Let's rewind a bit. Remember when we talked about the US leaving the gold standard and the Federal Reserve taking control of the money supply? Well, here's the kicker. The Federal Reserve can create more money whenever it wants. It's like our hypothetical kid having a magical piggy bank that never runs out of money. Sounds great, right? Well, not exactly. You see, when the Federal Reserve creates more money, it's not like finding a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow. Instead, it's more like borrowing money from a future version of yourself. And just like our candy-loving kid, the US has been borrowing a lot of money. But here's the problem. Just like our candy-loving kid, The more the US borrows, the more it owes. This is what we call the national debt. And right now the national debt is like a giant mountain of candy wrappers. It's huge. Now you might be thinking, why doesn't the US just pay back its debt? Well, it's not that simple. You see, the US needs money to do all sorts of things, like building roads, paying teachers, and yes, even buying candy. And if it used all its money to pay back the debt, there wouldn't be enough left for all these other things. So, the US is like a kid with a huge candy debt and a piggy bank full of paper. Not quite as sweet as it sounds, is it?